Hey, this is Jonathan Matoshnik, and the question is, I want to start a lawn business as to supplement my income. I'm not trying to make it my main source of income. I have a good paying job. I just want to make some extra cash during the summer months. How do I go about this? So, this is a pretty exciting situation to be in actually, because oftentimes what happens when you're starting a business and you're desperate for it to be your source of income, you make compromises and you do things you wouldn't have to do when you don't need the money. So you have opportunities here to roll some money back into the business to try to make it bigger and get a little bit bigger paycheck later. Or the other major advantage here is you have a real opportunity to make all the right decisions. Now you're still going to make some mistakes, but you have a real opportunity to make the right decisions going into this. So I think this is a pretty neat situation. So if I were starting a business on the side and it were 100% supplemental income, and that's the only reason I wanted it, if I could survive for one season without taking any income, that would be the most exciting scenario. If not, no big deal. So what I would try to do is I would try to take this first season to build up a little bit of a client base and to pay off all my stuff. And paying off all your stuff's not critical. That's just a strategy that I like because it gives you the most flexibility in life to be out of debt. Also ultimately leads to more profit. Obviously, as you know, banks make all their money on interest and fees and things of that sort. So if they can make a very nice, healthy living doing that, why wouldn't you rather keep all that money for yourself? That all eventually, the more you roll your money back into your business and have no debt, you have complete freedom, little reason to fail, and you're making all the money you'd normally be paying somebody else. So I like the strategy of trying to stay out of debt. And I see it, as I've mentioned before, a major reason for failure. So being able to start here on the side gives you some advantages in that you can kind of stay out of some of these trouble areas that get most guys in trouble. So the other thing that's going to neat about this is you can focus. So I really recommend you pick a certain area of the business to really focus on it. So if you're getting in the lawn business, you can either go maintenance side where you're doing mowing and trimming and things of that sort. You could go what I call the spray side of the business where you're doing the fertilization, weed control, pre-emergent, ant treatments, aeration, things of that sort. Clear you could do both, but I'd really pick one or the other. You could also be on the third side of the business, which would be landscape, and then there's the irrigation option, there's pest control. So you've really got all these different directions to go. So if this were my side business, I would seriously pick just one. And let me give you some scenarios. So one option would be to be on the fertilization and weed control side of the business. And I don't know your market and what most companies are like, but I've observed around the country that very often there's a lot of companies that are not in that are not in the fertilization weed control business for licensing reasons, for investment reasons, because it takes more customers to be able to. You have to have quite a number of additional customers to really make a lot of money in that side of the business than you do on the mowing side of the business, where you can mow and trim the bushes and such, and there's just a lot more service calls. Now, the advantage, though, of starting on the spray side of the business, even though it takes more customers, is that because a lot of mow companies are not on that side of the business, or a lot of landscape companies are not in that side of the business. That's not always true, but I see that as a common theme across the country. Then that gives you a neat opportunity to JV, to do joint ventures. So, for example, if I was starting on the side, maybe I wanted to be in the fertilization weed control business and then expand into pest control. So what I would do is I would look for landscape companies that offer the landscape installation but do not offer fertilization, weed control, and deep root feeding and all those other things that really at the end of the day are very, very valuable and important to the landscape company to make sure that the landscape that they've installed survives and thrives and turns into something that looks fantastic for the client. So they have several concerns. They're worried about their clients being happy. They're worried about the plants they've installed and the turf not dying. So they've got concerns in these areas. If the place looks fantastic, then the client's going to be more likely to recommend them and hire them again. They're going to have less warranty issues, as I mentioned. So they have a built-in benefit to make sure that they're hooking the client up with a good, solid company that's going to watch out for those plants and the grass and really take care of it and improve its health and life. So You could joint venture with these companies. You would want to go identify all the companies that do not offer fertilization and weed control services, and you'd want to strike a deal with them where you're either giving them a little bit of money, or you're cross-referring clients, or whatever the case may be, but something that's of benefit to both of you. So this would really cut down on your marketing expense. You would have all these clients that are all of these essentially partnerships of companies that are referring you. It takes a little time to build this up, but it's a neat source of new clients without a huge marketing expense. Or if you are paying some kind of a commission for each client given to you by a joint venture partner, then you're only incurring marketing expenses when you actually win new business. So again, great opportunity. So this is one of the first concepts that I would think about when I'm choosing what part of the business I'm going into. What part of the business offers me the most opportunity to focus on joint ventures versus a lot of marketing? You're going to be quite busy, so you probably don't have the time to spend a lot of time doing some door-to-door marketing and writing a lot of copy and sending it to printer. I'm not saying you don't do this stuff. I'm just saying if you have a full-time job, your time is going to be limited, so you've got to be as smart about this as possible. So where can you get your maximum benefit from a marketing growth standpoint? That's from joint ventures. So I'd first pick the service I'm going to offer based around my most likely prospect of getting new clients, the easiest way to go about it. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. Second, as I mentioned, I'd focus. If you're not focused, you're going to have a lower profit margin from the beginning. It's guaranteed. And if you're not focused, you're going to be running around town doing all kinds of different stuff and picking up plant material here and flowers there and mulch there and mowing sometimes and then trimming sometimes and then hauling around a spray tank other times. The more you change up the order of your the more you change up what you're doing throughout the day, the more you're having to stop mowing and start trimming bushes and stop trimming bushes and now run to Home Depot and get flowers, and now you got to get mulch, and then you've got to go to pick out some trees and shrubs. The more you do of that, the more unproductive hours you have. Also, we've learned in our business there's a real rhythm to doing the same thing over and over again. The guys that mow just mow. The guys that trim bushes just trim bushes. They get into a rhythm. They become experts at the task that they're focused on. The same's going to be true for you, assuming that you're doing some of the work. But if you're not doing the work, it's really important, because now you're hiring guys that you're paying out payroll dollars to. You want to make sure that they're as focused and profitable as possible, and that you're maximizing their productivity. So that gets into people. So the biggest thing I recommend in business, outside of marketing and growing your business, is to get out of the field as fast as you possibly can. This is critical. So the neat thing you've got going for you here is, because you've got a full-time job, maybe you start out doing the work, but as fast as you can, put yourself, because you hopefully don't have to have this money, put yourself in a position where you can hire somebody. This is a neat opportunity to almost force yourself to hire somebody to help you from the beginning. And that's how you start down that road of building a real company. So I would, and again, I've used the analogy so many times in other videos, but if you could hire somebody for $12 an hour, $14 an hour, then that's all your time's worth. That's all you're valuing your time at if you're actually the guy doing the work. I'm not interested personally in making $12 an hour. When I'm trying to eat and I don't have any other income and that's all I've got, yes, that's great. But when I've got a full-time job that I can live on, then $12 an hour doesn't get me excited. I want to make $80 an hour if I'm going to do something on the side. Why do I want to do something on the side for $12 an hour? So you're making $12 an hour if you're doing the work. So get out of the field, get some other guy to do the $12 an hour work, and focus on growing the business and setting up these joint ventures and doing the business side of the business, and let somebody else perform the work. That way you could actually on the side build yourself a real business that isn't that large, but really actually produces some really nice income for you. When you're not doing the work, when you're striking JV deals, you're keeping your marketing expenditures down, you're being very focused, you're maintaining high prices where you're willing to let some clients go, where you're having tight payment terms to make sure you don't have collections problems. When you're doing all these things, you're not in a position to be desperate for money. Then you can be in a situation to turn clients down that are not a perfect fit for your business. That is a great scenario. You want to be very picky about who you bring on as an employee, who you bring on as clients, and you want to be very, very focused with exactly what you're doing. Good luck.